You found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dead science? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts number, 120, our Creationists High. I am here with Kip and Vishanti, whom I have just unmuted because they are largely incapable of shutting up when we start. So, you know.
That's not true.
It's a
I'm
thing.
well behaved.
I think I don't know. I feel like this is my thing now.
Okay.
I'm well behaved. Don't slander my good name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also realized that I had not put my noise gate on, and so a little extra noise was coming through on my end. My apologies there. Dapper is in fact a professional, so I'll take a drink. I actually started doing that because I noticed that if I recorded through a few different filters here in OBS, my sound was actually better than if I tried to just apply the filters manually in Audacity. So now when I record my audio, I actually record it as a video in OBS, and then I drop it into Audacity for a little bit further post-processing. And but one of the things I had to take
Even with
out,
all of like the add-ons that Audacity has.
yeah, it's faster and easier if I just do it that way. And then but if I keep the noise gate on, it doesn't sound as good if I drop it into Audacity as if I had just recorded in Audacity. So I recorded audio recently, and I turned off the noise gate for that reason, and then I forgot to turn it back on. So there you go. But we have a few things to read before we get into it. Ben Extra Thick Tunicate, who's been a member for 25 months. And is at the annual level, says won't be able to make it to the live stream, so sending donations, gift memberships, and emojis when your of your favorite you carry out, when then sends 3 pelagic tunicates, which is absolutely disgusting and definitely not my favorite you carry out, but that's okay because then Ben Extra Thick Tunicate gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, so we'll take 5 drinks for that, which I already have on the counter. 1, 2, 3, 4, and of course 5. And then Ben Extra Thick Tunicate says AIG are a conniving conclave of codpiece contents, conning their converts out of their currency, which of course we will take another drink for, which again, already on the counter. Then Asteryu for $4.99 says, yeah, we shouldn't slander Vish. A bag of mail and echidnas, suspiciously labeled, the 3-letter acronym does that well enough.
Well,
I did not entirely follow that one, but thank you. I appreciate it. All right, so we are, this is Dapper Reacts. In case you are new here, the way this goes is basically we come up with some creationist nonsense usually. Not always, but usually. Sometimes it's other nonsense, like when we did, like, was North America originally inhabited by a race of giants with, like, double teeth? And the answer to that is no. But we did it here anyway. But it's usually young Earth creationism. Although the giant thing in the young Earth creationism, like the Venn diagram between young Earth creationism and giant people, it's like the young Earth creationist circle is bigger, and it almost entirely, but not quite entirely, contains a smaller circle of ancient giant people. So
To clarify, people that are into the idea of giants, not people who are themselves giant.
hey, if you're a giant and you're watching this, you're welcome
Right.
here, no matter how many teeth you have. So, there you go. I also want to say that we are, in fact, still running a GoFundMe. Well, I'm still running a GoFundMe. This computer here that I'm using is, I think, 6, maybe 7 years old, and I basically have it going at nearly 100%, pretty much every
you have
day.
enslaved that computer.
Yeah, it basically, if I'm not doing this, and I'm not, like, actively playing a video game, then it's on rendering for Sheepit, basically 24/7.
It is a machine.
Mhm.
I am a divine being, and it may not speak in my holy tongue.
Oh,
All computers must
Yeah.
shut the hell up.
I'm not asking for sympathy for my machine. However, it is going to be dying. I mean, it's dying right now.
You are slowly but surely killing it.
Yes.
Turn it into
Is what
another
you're saying.
Gola, like Duncan Idaho and his 87,000 Golas.
I don't think you can do a computer Gola. I think it has to be biological, but I'm not really sure.
I think so.
I am pretty
so.
sure that what's the guys from Ix or 9 if you're fancy.
Mm.
I'm sure that they would try to figure out a way for that.
Oh yeah, but I feel
Many
like
machines on Ix.
I feel like their Ashlot tanks are just not gonna work out. That's how you make a Gola. Anyway, don't look up what Ashlot tanks are unless you're definitely in a mood to be grossed out. Anyway, so that GoFundMe is linked in the pinned chat, and I do believe it is also in the description here. Let me double check on that. Yes, it is. So if you give to that, and I will be refreshing it periodically throughout the stream. If you give to that, I will be adding that to the counter here for things like me getting a fancy avatar, or even a pink tutu, Bent getting free pizza, stuff like that. And it's also going to count 20% extra. So if you give $10, that actually counts as you giving $12 towards all that stuff. So if you really want to see Bent get free pizza, or a fancy avatar for my next video, or be wearing a pink tutu for a second time in a row on Tuesdays, then yeah, the GoFundMe is the most cost-effective way to do that. So feel free to give there. Also, if you send any messages along with your super chats over there, we will read them and they will count for things like AIG's a bag of dicks or stuff like that. So,
I read this membership chat.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Okay, Jake, insert clever Dapper inside joke here. Nelson, member for 26 months at the eminent level, writes, Pope Leo the 14th should have went with Pope Giordano, since we didn't get Pope Pizzaballa.
Pizzaballa.
It will
And
never...
that's a Chicago joke for those of you that don't know. There's
I don't know.
Great Pope memes because he's originally from Chicago.
Oh,
He's a dual citizen in
yes.
Peru. He has Creole heritage. But yeah, the memes about like Portillo's and deep dish communion wafers, like body of Christ, but it's a deep dish. Like, yeah, those memes are great.
I mean, look, I'm not Catholic, but if they were going to start handing out deep dish at Mass, I would consider...
You'd go back? You'd consider going back?
Well, it can't be back because I've never been Catholic. I would have to go back. I would have to have been Catholic at some point.
Yeah, there's some people in chat that know about Giordano's, and those folks are correct. Delicious.
Meat Permits Tan for $5 says, I woke up and thought I had conjunctivitis. I was really worried I got Bodhi's work in my eye, but I am okay. AIG is a bindle of bollock stoppers. We'll take a drink for that. Thank you. Actually, I woken up and thought, oh no, do I have like conjunctivitis? And it turns out, no, I was just sleeping in a absurdly awkward position where like my eyelid was like partially open, and so I was basically crying the whole time, and so like extra mucus.
Oh my god.
And I was like, oh, okay, no, at least it's not infectious. It's just me being an idiot while sleeping somehow, because that's a thing you can do.
Also, the jokes about using, instead of sacramental wine, using Malort.
I mean, technically, I think the only rule is that it has to be made from grapes, and it has to either be fermented or be able to be fermented. Because, like...
The rules of communion wine?
Yeah, for the Catholic Church specifically.
Yeah, right.
I mean, obviously they're going to vary based on, which Christian tradition you're looking at. Like, they're not going to be the same for like,
we
the
didn't...
Oriental Orthodox or the Eastern Orthodox or various Protestant groups.
Right, yes. See,
fact,
we didn't grow up drinking that devil's brew.
Oh, no.
Malort or the Portillo's hot dogs.
Did you drink grape juice? Grape juice?
We did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Apparently grape juice was actually invented by a Protestant clergyman in order to get away from alcohol.
Communion wine.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, what if we just don't make alcohol with it? What if we just crush up the grapes and strain it?
Yeah, right.
And then we just drink that.
Puritan solution there. I really like grape juice. But I like wine a lot more. So
yeah, I generally do. I mean, there are wines
grape juice in the fridge.
Cool. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, Giordano's pizza is the love child of a pizza and a lasagna. It is amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
Chicago-style
That does
pizza is
sound
basically just a casserole, but we don't talk about that.
Right.
Well, here's the other
Because
thing.
they're delicious.
You can just buy the little communion wafers, and you could put them at the bottom of a cast iron pan and then pour cheese and sauce and toppings on that.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, no one can stop you. In fact, even...
Yeah, but it wouldn't be like the body of Christ because you're not the
Sure, you haven't.
SCP that can,
Oh,
or
yeah.
an ordained minister. So
I heard maybe you are. Someone out there watching this could very well be an ordained Christian clergyman who is authorized to use the words of institution.
It's
To,
totally
you know,
possible,
I-
right?
Look, I'm not here to exclude Christian clergy people. If you're a Christian clergyman and you're watching, you're welcome. I mean, as to
hey, I
review
mean,
for $4.99.
most Christians don't believe in young Earth creationism, so
True.
get in here. It's a party.
Yeah. I mean, look, 2 of my regular co-hosts are Christian. So, like, we do not have an anti-Christian policy. As to review for $4.99 says, just saw a take that apparently Dapper is against furries and the like because he's an obligate carnivore. I fear even AIG isn't that much of a you-know-what. Well, first we'll take a drink for that, because I know what. And, no, I have no problem with furries. I'm not a furry, but, like, you do you. You know?
Is your human suit technically a fur suit?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't
right?
know. I don't... It...
Probably got some
Because, I mean,
fur on it in
apes...
places.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, and we have received additional donations. I'm not really sure. Let's see. Yep, we got an additional $50 from Madam Sloth and $20 from Sarah. So thank you very much. So let's add another 70 on there. And I will double check to make sure that we don't have any extra messages with that, which it looks like we do not. So thank you very much to those two. By the way, if it looks like a real name, I'm just going to read out the first name because, I don't know, some people are not great at figuring out how to give anonymously or with a pseudonym, and they don't want their last names out there. If you do give, and it was your first name, and you want your last name read out, feel free to tag me and ask me to do that too. Anyway, so what are we here for? What are we actually here for? Because we're not really here to talk about the new pope or pizza.
We're here for pain.
We're here for pain, and it's specifically pain from Bodhi Hodge, who apparently, I'm learning from Dr. Joel Duff, who keeps track of this kind of thing. Apparently, Bodhi Hodge's contributions to the AIG website have been completely scrubbed.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It seems like it's more than just he realized he wasn't getting the keys to the kingdom, and so he buggered off.
Boy,
And
this
it's
sounds
becoming
like a real family drama here.
Yup. So, like,
Oh,
it's
boy.
not entirely clear what's going on.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not just, oh, Bodhi realized he wasn't going to be able to be, like, the AIG Nepo baby forever, so he left. It seems like it's a little bit deeper than that. Because that's what I assumed it was, right? I assumed he was like, oh, yeah, my father-in-law is going to give me the keys to the empire of AIG, and then that wasn't happening, so he was like, all right, I'm out. No, apparently it's more than that. So, like,
Sounds like it.
But this is a book we're reading now that Bodhi wrote and published with AIG. He was with AIG when he wrote it, and they're the ones who were involved in the publication. I think they actually have their own printing press somewhere. I'm not positive about that, though.
No, they publish their stuff through Masters Seminary.
Okay, yeah, that checks out. So
doesn't it?
This book is about the Tower of Babel, and this particular chapter is about what the original language was and how it is that Moses could have possibly read the records of the antediluvian, ante-Tower of Babel, I suppose, patriarchs. Because according to Bodhi and Answers in Genesis, the way that Genesis was actually written was that each patriarch that it was about was actually writing that section of Genesis and then handing off those records to the next guy, who apparently they just knew psychically would eventually be preserved in Genesis. I don't really know how that works. Maybe God told them. And then somehow Moses had all these records and he physically compiled them into Genesis. And then basically the rest of the Torah was just his autobiography that he was writing about himself.
That's it.
Including the part maybe where he dies. It's not really clear exactly how that happens because there's some posthumous bits in there if Moses was writing it. And also, it means that Moses wrote, now Moses was the most humble man on the earth, which is a weird thing to write about yourself.
Exactly what the most humble man on earth would say about himself.
Exactly.
It's just objectively true sometimes, right?
Yeah, you can't lie.
It's also impressive that Moses had access to all these, pre-flood records, being that he was born and raised in Egypt. But, hey, maybe God just dictated it all back to him from scratch. You don't know.
We don't know. Well, actually, maybe we're going to find out because that's what this chapter is about.
Okay.
I just now that
go.
Vish brings up that very, very good point, I just want to say, hearkening back to my conversation with Dr. David Carr, what this seems to require also is that while in Egypt, the Hebrews were, collecting and accumulating and preserving their clay tablets, their,
Mhm.
I guess, cuneiform tablets, their Sumerian tablets that they apparently, hauled along with them from traipsing around in Palestine.
Mhm.
And they held on to those. They kept, reproducing those, I guess, while they had breaks during their enslavement. No idea where they got the materials to continue this record keeping. Maybe they switched to papyrus at that time to make it easier.
Okay, here I got it figured out. So you know
Okay.
how Joseph becomes a vizier in Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the one who actually brought all those records, and that's why there's a time skip between.
Wait.
Ah.
What
him-
records? Where from? Where?
Doesn't
What
matter.
records?
All
Where?
the records that Bodhi's talking about. It was brought to Egypt by Joseph, who put them in an Egyptian library, and then after the Israelites ended up in Egypt, the reason that there's a time skip is because the Egyptians didn't care to preserve any records from their enslaved populations, but the ones that Joseph already had put in their library was from before they had enslaved the Israelites anyway, so we don't have to worry about that. That's why there's a time skip.
But this doesn't deal with the issue of 400 years of reproduction of clay tablets.
It's just the patriarchs holding on to the originals. They didn't reproduce them. They just had the originals.
They just held on to the originals. They
Yeah,
just had
they were very
these
careful with
dusty
them.
clay tablets sticking. Okay, wow, all right.
Hey, fired clay
Got
tablets can last for thousands of years. We know that because we still find them.
That's fair. That's true.
They're not
That's
going to
fair.
rot away like
Right.
parchment is.
Right. So I did want to say something else about Master's Seminary. Just because when I was on my first postdoc in Norway, I met a guy who was just completing his PhD at the University of Birmingham, and he was heading over to do a postdoc at the University of Helsinki. And this guy, I won't mention his name, but this guy was a graduate of the Master's Seminary. And I discovered while he was working on his postdoc at the University of Helsinki that he actually was part of a major contribution to like a 650, 700 page academic book on the flood
Oh, goodness.
that was published by Master's Seminary. And his contribution, if I remember correctly, it was him and another guy who worked. They're all guys, right? Master's Seminary, famously Master's Seminary, actually will not allow women to enroll in classes. So the
Lame.
What
very
about
lame.
what about
They-
trans people? Will they let trans men to apply? Trans
well,
women?
maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure.
I bet they don't have an
but
official policy, but if they have to make the decision, it's going to be the most bigoted possible option.
It probably would be.
Yeah.
Not probably. Yeah, we know it would be. But this contribution was over 100 pages.
Wow.
On the function of the Vayiktul verbal form. This is the Hebrew vav consecutive or vav conversive verb, probably, the most commonly repeated grammatical feature of the entire Hebrew Bible, single grammatical feature of the entire Hebrew Bible. He wrote 100 pages on how somehow the Vayiktul verbal form confirms the historicity of the story of Noah's Ark.
Okay.
So,
Hey.
yes.
Oh, that's
I'll
incredibly
remind
dumb.
you, Birmingham PhD did a postdoc at the University of Helsinki.
All right.
And then another one at Göttingen.
All right, we have a few
Not
things.
Groningen. Sorry, Groningen.
We have a few
Once
things
again,
to
that's
read, and then we're actually going to get into this. So one thing I want to say is thank you very much
Oh,
to
yeah.
Tad for giving $10 to the GoFundMe that has been added. We have a few things here. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, but the flood never happened in Egypt. Of course they'd have records. Oh, right, because, Egypt does predate the flood, so... Yeah, it would make sense they could keep the records there. Then Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says, can't wait for Bodie Hodge to 86% similar his car analogy while just an aping his quote mine. Nice. All right, so we are going to get into this. So this is Bodie Hodge's chapter about the survival of all this stuff. And real quick, Kip, what you drinking?
I have coffee.
With
And I have Bailey's.
there you go. Fish, not Chesh. Chesh was on with me last night. Fish, what are you drinking?
Raz Cranberry LaCroix.
I am drinking a mojito out of a Wharf Tiki mug. All right, who wants to go first?
I'll
Not
go
me.
first.
I read almost the whole
because
time.
I know. I felt like I was not reading at all last time. It was terrible.
Well,
so
give it a go.
Okay. We should read the heading here first.
Yes, I agree.
If number 2 is correct, Dapper, can you remind us what number 2 is?
It's
You
literally the
remember
next
everything,
clause.
right?
It's the next clause.
Oh, all right. Okay. Then previous documents that survived on the Ark could easily have been translated, right?
Yeah.
Right? Very easily.
Maybe?
Okay. Sometimes people fail to realize that Noah and his son, and presumably their wives, were still alive during
Presumably.
and after Babel. Okay. Thank you for that assertion. When people were scattered from the Tower of Babel, so what is this based on? Do we have information in the text about the ages of their wives? Why would their wives presumably have been alive during and after Babel?
He's just gonna go ahead and presume that the wives had about the same lifespan as the husband. Which,
okay, got it. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to assume that the patriarchs are actually living that old, it's not the worst assumption that maybe their wives were too. I mean, we have Abraham and Sarah, or Abram and Sarai, and then they're both living to be similar ages. So, like,
I guess that's fair.
Of the nonsense assumptions that he's made up for no textual reason, this is not the worst of them. Not
a big deal.
Yeah.
No, okay. When people were scattered from the Tower of Babel, it was about 100 to 130 years after the flood. Archbishop Usher places Babel at 2242 BC and the flood at 2348 BC, allowing about 106 years from the flood to Babel.
Real quick, Jasper, Mr. Clay Tablets, the mighty for €11, says, seems like I wasn't reading it all. Reading it all, stupid sexy Bodhi. Thank you very much.
Like possibility number 1, possibility number 2 assumes the original language survived through Babel. The Bible does not say the original language was necessarily lost, but confused.
Ooh.
Oh, look here, Bodhi's showing some Hebrew muscle here.
Well, he's showing someone else's Hebrew muscles because he clearly did not come up with this himself.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. All I could think of in the moment was then Christopoulos, who seems like a nice enough guy, telling me that he does all his Hebrew heavy lifting using his tools. Whatever those are.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. So,
hey, Terrador's Final Form just joined the channel at the Amniote level. Thank you very much, Terrador's Final Form.
Yeah, very nice. So the Hebrew word balal, meaning to mix, mingle, confuse, or confound. The Hebrew word, okay, sorry. That was
Yeah, you
my
missed the verb, but he had the verb in
I
there.
did. That's okay. He did. This suggests that there may be aspects of the original language still used in one or various languages created at Babel. Hmm. I'm not sure if that's what that. Now I have to look
The
because
part of the
I'm
problem though
just
is that
not sure about the semantic range of
he's
Balal.
assuming a level of sophistication in terms of like the linguistics
He really
that
is.
neither he
Yeah.
nor the authors of Genesis had. So
No, not at all.
and that's one of the problems that Bodhi has is like he is treating this book as if he can glean highly technical, like scholarly data about linguistics from a nonsense story about a tower to heaven that scared God. Because let's remember specifically
Yeah.
what this is about. God got scared because a tower was too big, according to the text. So he made everyone speak different languages, forgetting that humans can learn new languages, and apparently also the people who built the tower also forgot that humans can learn new languages, and they were like, "Oh well, guess we'll split up now." That's the story that Bodhi is assuming that he can draw actual linguistic data from. It's completely
Yeah.
insane.
It is. So I'm thinking this through and I'm looking at the very rarely used root balal in the Hebrew Bible, but it's to mix up, right? Like that doesn't necessarily I think he's going about this the wrong way. If you think about right? Yeah, if you think about mixtures, it's like all this is saying is that there was a whole bunch of them. Now, just sort of dispersed. It doesn't necessarily mean, and I don't think that there's any suggestion here that there's elements of an original language that still survive.
But it would be convenient for Bodhi if it were.
It sure would. So God could just as easily have removed the original language altogether. God, right? That's what they do. And this would indeed confuse the languages of the whole world.
You think it ever occurs to
Okay.
Bodhi that God in Genesis kind of seems like both a bit of a dick and totally insecure, and the degree to which that does not line up with what Bodhi actually thinks about God, and that maybe that should cause some tension for Bodhi? You think he ever thinks about that?
No, because how dare you?
Fair enough. Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, I thought Semiticus had already figured out Phrygian is the mother of languages. With two AIGs, a bag of dicks emoji, which we will take a drink for. Look, no language that we have records for is even in contention for being the original language. Not Phrygian,
Sure.
not Sumerian,
No.
not Hebrew, not Arabic, not Georgian, none of them. If there is a language that humans currently have the ability anywhere to understand and read, that's not the original language. Because the problem is that we actually can see the evidence of historical linguistics in languages at the dawn of writing, right? Like, we can see that Sumerian already has loan words from other language families, like Afroasiatic words, that have been loaned into Sumerian by the time Sumerian writing even starts. So, like, we know that there is a long background history to languages in the world before writing starts. I'm going to say some of the first
The oldest one we have access to. Yes.
Right, it already shows evidence of historical linguistics processes, right?
Yeah.
And, like, we call Sumerian an isolate, but it probably wasn't an isolate when it first was being written down. It's just that the other languages in its language family were not also being written down. But even when we start seeing, like, the first Semitic languages, which are mostly, like, Asemitic languages being written in cuneiform, the fact that we can identify them as separate Semitic languages means that, again, they have also already had an extensive history behind them. So, like, yeah, even the proto languages, like, we're like, oh, what about proto Afroasiatic? Yeah, it was probably part of a language family with other languages, which is currently unrecoverable. But there's no reason to even think that the proto languages of the world's big super language families, like, Sino-Tibetan, Afroasiatic, Indo-European, all those, there's no reason to even think those didn't have a history before them. So, like, yeah, there is no original language that we can recover. Was there ever an original language? I don't know. That's still an open question in linguistics, if there was ever a proto-world. And it's not clear whether or not there was one. I mean, obviously, as a matter of logical necessity, there was a first language to ever be spoken. But, like, what can we say about it? And the answer is, it had to have existed, and that's about it. I also want to say thank you to Kyle, who just gifted $50 on the GoFundMe. That is greatly appreciated.
Nice.
And also, Lieutenant Matt the Navigator says, maybe the mother's tongue is pre-Yiddish in Reformed Egyptian script. Now, that right there seems like a very plausible hypothesis.
I like that one.
Yeah,
Very good.
we should probably bring that idea to, like,
I
the
wonder how
current
Bodhi
president of the Mormon
feels
Church.
about that one.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Bodhi's
Maybe-
one of those
maybe not
guys. I feel like Bodhi might be one of those guys who is super, super highly skeptical about Joseph Smith's claims about Reformed Egyptian, while himself never turning a critical eye to any of his own beliefs.
It's funny how that works.
It is. Yeah.
All right. Ready? Okay. The context of Genesis 10:5 seems to indicate that Noah's 16 grandsons and other listed descendants in Genesis 10 each had their own language division. Did this apply to Noah and his sons? It is not certain. But since God divided the people according to their families, their mishkapet, it seems unlikely that God would have destroyed the ability of Noah and his sons to communicate with each other. I mean, what kind of an asshole would do that?
The kind who gets scared by a little tower. Because you gotta remember that the depiction of God in Genesis is really not in line with the depiction of God in a lot of other parts of the Bible. He seems to be fairly weak and cowardly and easily threatened by, like, what if they build big tower? Oh no, I better go fix that. And, like, what if the humans also live too long after learning what good and evil is? Can't have that. Gotta get rid of them. That's scary. Like, repeatedly, God is like, "Oh man, I screwed up," or "Oh man, this is scary."
Even gets into a fight and has to cheat to win. Yeah,
he wrestles a human and has to paralyze that guy's leg in order to win a wrestling match.
That's right. So it's.
I stumped a theology teacher with that one once.
Oh, very.
I went to a Catholic high school, right? And the teacher at some point was like, I probably know the Bible more than any of you guys. You probably couldn't ever stump me. And I was like, all right. I was like, well, what's the one dietary restriction in the Pentateuch that's mentioned in Genesis? There's only one. And it's in the story about wrestling with God. And because God touches a particular tendon, that tendon is not kosher to eat in other animals. And the theology teacher was like, I have no idea. I was like, here you go. It's this one. Take that.
Wait, did you actually have a theology class? You actually had a class with
in Catholic
a teacher
school
who came in and said, I know this shit way better than you.
That wasn't the opening to the class, but there was talk about like, oh, how do you get to know the Bible this well? And I was like, I spend a lot of time. I probably know it better than most of the any of you probably do because I spend all my time on it. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Because then I took that as like a challenge. So like, oh, this teacher thinks that she knows all this stuff about the Bible, and also she was a former nun, which was interesting. Yeah,
that is interesting.
Yeah, she was a nun, and then she was like, you know what? I'm gonna go get a husband and kids. So she left the convent, and she did just that. She got a husband and kids, and good for her. If
that's right.
Look, that's what you want. Go for it. If you want to be a nun, go for that too.
Go get it. Yeah. Go get it.
Here at the Dapper Dinosaur channel, we are very supportive of the life choices of other people that do not harm others. And going and getting a husband doesn't harm people. Neither does going and being a nun. So go have fun with it. We got a few things here. Fearmonger, Master of Science, who's been a member for 30 months and is at the Tetrapod level, says, just dropping in to say Ken Ham sucks dicks with a Dapper, deal with it. I have no information that could either confirm or deny that about Ken Ham, but I also wouldn't be surprised given the history of virulently homophobic Christian leaders being themselves engaged in some homosexual activities. So I can't say it's definitely true, but it wouldn't shock me. Meat Permits Tan, who's been a member for 3 months, is at the Tetrapod level, says, our god is an awestruck god. That does actually seem to be the case a lot of the times in Genesis. And Terador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, so all the Toledotism had their own conline? That would be an interesting take. Like, what if all of the quote-unquote Toledotes, as Bodhi likes to put it, were actually just in their own particular bespoke language that he had to then later translate?
That's it.
All right, go ahead.
Yep, that's wild. It is quite likely that Noah and his sons retained the original language, or at the very least inherited the same language between them. This would still cause the confusion, God intended. So he's like, they knew some words, but not all the words, which made it confusing. Right?
I really want to know what Bodhi thinks is happening in terms of like the actual lexicon and grammars of these languages. Because he's not clear about it. He's like, well, it got confused, and there were aspects that were preserved. So, like, did, like, Shem keep most of the vocabulary, but then Ham got, like, you know, the grammatical forms and whatnot, and then, like, Japheth got various other, like, syntactic markers that were left over or something? Like, how does this work,
Yes.
Bodhi?
Yeah.
Yes,
One of them
exactly.
gets SVO, one gets VSO, one
Yeah,
gets like,
like-
oh, our language has like 27 declensions, and the other one's like, yeah, we
Yes.
don't use declensions
You
at
get
all.
16 of those declensions, and your brother gets the other
The other 5
how
or
many is
whatever.
it?
cares?
Yeah, exactly. So
Clearly, one of the original languages from Babel was Swahili, because that's got a whole butt ton of declensions.
I mean, mostly it's just got a bunch of genders, actually.
I mean,
Swahili got most of the genders. Everyone else was just left with like 2 or 3.
Ethiopia
That's
taking
it,
all the
right?
genders.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
in this case, I am specifically meaning grammatical genders. But if it's funny for you to think of it in other ways, feel free. But I do mean
I
grammatical
mean,
genders.
Vietnamese also has a lot of genders. So
And also, annoyingly, phonemic tone. Stop with phonemic tone, Sino-Tibetan languages. It's annoying. Ugh. Let's see. Terador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, technically correct. Noah and his sons probably spoke the same language. I mean, yeah, if they were real characters, then I presumably.
Yeah. I don't know. It kind of feels like maybe Bodhi's overthinking this.
That's been this entire book.
one thing that
We're
you
like
cannot
200
say
something
about
pages
Bodhi
in.
Hodge is that he is too thunk.
Well, the thing is,
That
he's thinking about it too much, but in ways where like the logic doesn't flow.
Oh, yes, exactly.
He's-
Yes, that's it.
Basically, this is what happened if you gave like a normal person like an assignment. Like, okay, I need 400 pages about the Tower of Babel. Here's what you have. You have Bishop Ussher. You have some 19th century biblical commentaries. You have a few
The
books
older the better.
from Cranks, and you have a truckload of crystal meth.
This is the this is the theme for today, right?
Yeah.
But this is sort of an ongoing pattern and a theme that you see with a certain brand of Christian apologists, usually on the more conservative side, that the older your source, the better.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about your primary source material, like your secondary source material.
Has been corrupted by modern liberal scholarship.
Yes. Right. So a book published in the 17th century is far superior to anything published in the 20th century. And I guess presumably, something about corruption, but I also wonder how much this has to do with this idea that we're just getting worse and worse. And the closer back in time that you get to, I guess, that first pristine, pure writing, the better. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, so creationists often love to complain about the idea of like progressivism in history. And I don't necessarily mean like political progressivism, right? But just the idea that as things go on through history, they kind of just generally get better. And to be fair to them, that's not a general trend that you can just apply to history broadly. It does happen from time to time and place to place, right? And I would argue that, to a large extent, the last couple centuries have been some of the best times to be a human overall in terms of like likelihood that you will survive to adulthood, how likely you are to starve to death or not, things like that, right? Like those are the last couple centuries have been reasonably good compared to previous centuries for a large swath. Now that doesn't mean that there have not been absolute horrific sections of the world for certain people during that time, but overall things like deaths from starvation, deaths from preventable diseases, those have been on the decline
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
a little
say
while.
sanitation and antibiotics alone.
Right. But on
Right.
the other hand, things like, moral progress or the idea that technology always moves forward, those are just not actual true things that always happen. There are societies where technology has regressed. There are societies where, it's pretty obvious that there are societies where moral progress has been reversed. You might be aware of a big one currently going on right now. Because, so, there is a woman who recently got almost $1 million because
Right.
she called a small child the N-word repeatedly.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
progressivism is not
Thanks,
much of a
world.
thing. But on the other hand, what they go for is this idea of like continual decay, where like, see, God made Adam and Eve perfect with like a hyper genius brain, and they were 12 feet tall or whatever. And it's been downhill ever since. We're getting dumber and stupider. And sure, we've had some technological progress by building on the shoulders of giants, but overall, we're getting sicker and weaker and dumber and shorter. And also, they always seem to think that being short or small is bad. I think that's one of the reasons why they hate chihuahuas and like toy poodles and such. But anyway, that's also stupid.
Really do,
right?
don't they?
Yeah,
It's
it's
kind
bizarre.
of
Actually, put
it
some
really
small
is.
dogs in the chat. We have a small dog emoji. Let me see some small dog emojis in the chat, everybody.
Yeah.
But both
Yeah.
of those extremes are just wrong about history. History is neither the story of continual progress, nor is it the story of continual degradation. And so you can't really just apply one or the other. Now, I have a few things to read here. First, Goop23 for $2 says, she took the genders in the divorce. Yeah, Swahili got all the genders. All they left everyone else with was like a few places that have like rational, irrational, and then like masculine, feminine, and neuter. And then every once in a while, some language combines masculine and feminine into common. What weirdos.
Weirdos. Yeah.
Then Meat Permits Tan for $2 says, I wasn't paying attention. Where's the truckload? Bodie's house. Gotta go check out Bodie's house. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, unless of course the primary source is in the canon, in which case sometimes millennia later is considered contemporary. Yeah, there is that too, right? Like if it's within whatever my group has determined as the canon. And actually, there's one thing that I've never got Protestants to give me is how do you know what the canon is if you're going with only what's in the canon counts as official and authoritative? Because what's in the canon isn't in the canon anywhere. So are you going back to an extra biblical tradition about the Bible? Seems like
and
it
also,
would,
who's canon? There's more than one.
There's so many.
Also, I want to say thank you to Isaac, who has gifted $10 to the GoFundMe. And I want to say that we are already at 65% of the way to Fancy Avatar, which means that we're even closer than that to Ben get some free pizza. And so I don't know if Ben wants pizza today or tomorrow or whatever, but it looks like at this rate, this weekend, there's a good chance that he's going to get pizza. And also, I want to say thank you so much.
Giordano's pizza?
No, I don't think we have a Giordano's nearby.
Probably not.
I want to say thank you so much because right now the fundraiser is at $3,055. Wow, which is crazy, and it is going to make it so that I can get a very nice computer that will be... Actually, I'm not going to predict how long it's going to last because I'm going to run it hard. It's going to be constantly chugging at rendering and 3D modeling and simulating and all this nonsense. But at the very least, it will allow my videos to be produced for several years, and it will allow them to be produced at a faster rate because I'm currently thinking about going with an RTX 5080. In case you're wondering, I did consider AMD graphics cards, but Blender, which is the primary production program that I use, is optimized heavily for RTX NVIDIA graphics cards, which means if I go AMD, it is actually going to slow down my render times, which is not an option. So, Meat Permits Time for $5 also says, yo, dog, I heard you like Canon, so I put a Canon in your Canon. Yeah, and actually, the weird thing is, like, there was never an official determination until fairly recently of, like, Old Testament canons in any Christian church, right? Like, currently, the Old Testament canon hasn't, as far as I know, actually been officially declared in any Eastern church. and the Catholic Church only officially like ratified their canon in like the 17th century or something. So like for most of Christian
Well, I wonder
history,
why they did that.
well, it's in response to Protestants.
Yes.
Basically, almost everything the Catholic Church did between the Protestant Reformation and like the late 1800s was just in direct response to Protestant.
Yes.
So like, yeah,
you know, when you're
there's that too. Where it's like
Wait.
what counts as canon has been a fluid thing for most of Christian history. The New Testament has been pretty well set for about 1500 years, but like the Old Testament's been kind of like, I mean, no one disputes the Torah or the prophets, but like Maccabees, I don't know. You know, who knows? Maybe.
Judith, how many psalms are there?
Yeah. There are a lot of Bibles out there that have 151 Psalms and that use the Septuagint numbering, which I actually slightly prefer because it unifies an acrostic that is two different Psalms in the Masoretic text. I actually think that there's a fair chance that the Septuagint numbering is the older numbering.
Yeah, that could be.
Wow,
But
don't
even
ask
the
Bodhi
even
how many psalms are in the Dead Sea Scrolls? Yeah.
well, no, and don't ask anyone that question because you know it just depends on which manuscript you're looking at. So
Yeah. So, by the way, first I want to say thank you. We did get a bunch of tiny dogs in the chat. That dog, by the way, is in fact Carmen. And in case anyone is wondering, Carmen is showing no signs of having had aggressive cancer, which was a concern for a little while. So,
nice.
Yep, looks like, as far as we can tell, either Carmen doesn't have cancer or she has a very slow cancer because she is doing just fine and she is happy running around, getting the zoomies, barking at who knows what. So, yeah, she
Excellent.
is. There had been a health
Doing
scare a little while ago. Yeah. So
Good.
Command Cyborg, who's been a member for 50 months, my goodness, and is at the Saropsa level, says, too tired to say something clever, and then just blasts every single emoji. But since every single emoji, also, actually, every single emoji it looks like, except the pelagic tunicate, which I greatly appreciate. But since that includes Godzilla, a Mothra, a King Ghidorah, a drink, and an AIG as a bag of dicks emoji, we will take a drink for it. So thank you very much. Then Right-Handed Sith, who's been a member for 27 months and is at the Amniote level, says, in honor of at Border Barbecue, just so many pelagic tunicates, but then a Ghidorah, and then another hated pelagic tunicate, which is disgusting, but there's a Ghidorah, so I'm obligated to drink, even though I don't appreciate it. Then Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says, Vatican II stance on Jews was definitely not a response to the Holocaust. Yeah, well, a lot of groups decided to perhaps make official statements about the Jews that were perhaps softening their stances in the wake of yeah.
It did.
Also,
what do you
World
mean
War
centuries of that Christian rhetoric directly contributed to the freaking anti-Semitic.
That seems fake.
I get very angry. I'm just.
Also, in one little interesting note, there is a state in Greece, because Greece is divided into states, in case you didn't know. But there is a state that does not allow women in. But they made an exception for refugees during World War II. They allowed women in during World War II. Yep. In case you're wondering, it is the state of Mount Athos, which does not fly the Greek flag, but rather flies the flag of Byzantium. Still uses Byzantine time.
What do you mean they don't? What do you mean they don't allow women in, like
only into the state? You're not, if you're a woman, you're not allowed to step foot inside that state in Greece.
Wow. So what? I mean, it feels like that could be a problem over time.
I mean, every single permanent resident of that state is a monk.
Soon, sure. Okay,
that makes sense.
And a lot of them aren't even Greek. So
it would have to.
The state is Mount Athos, which is an independent state as a result of its having been a location for multiple monasteries and nothing else for thousands of years, and it does not allow women in. Well, okay, maybe over 1,000 years. So, but yeah, it does not allow women in, and it does in fact still fly the flag of Byzantium, because as far as they're concerned, the empire is actually the rightful ruler of all of Anatolia and Greece and whatnot. And yes, most of the monasteries have two clocks, one for like Mount Athos time, which is just Byzantine Roman time, and another one for like what the rest of Greece is using, because, you know, They've adopted the system of time that we all
Excellent.
use, but they're still using the like
Excellent.
sunup is hour 1, sunset is at hour 12, starts at hour 12, and like the third hour is just 3 hours after sunrise. And however long the daytime is, that helps you determine how long the hours are and whatnot. Yeah. But they did allow women in as refugees during World War II because it turns out that the idea that the only woman allowed on the mountain is supposed to be the Virgin Mary is not as important as not letting people just randomly die in the middle of the ocean because they wouldn't let them on because they were women. Monks were like, no, that's not okay. We'll let them on. That's probably a better option.
I mean, and that's pretty base considering that Greece deported and or murdered the vast majority of its ancient Sephardic Jewish population. So,
So yeah, which means I guess I have mixed feelings because I'm not a big fan of an idea that you're just going to say women aren't allowed to even visit. But on the other hand, I do appreciate you taking in refugees. So anyway,
is it appropriate to make a broken clocks are right twice a day joke?
Seems fine by me.
That is also timely.
Yeah. Actually,
Thank you.
Ashley Unko, who's been a member for 1 month and is at the amulet level, says, "What CPU are you looking to get? Also, AIG is a bag of transphobes." Which, well, yeah, one, they are, and I'll take a drink for it because they absolutely are. In fact, a huge portion of their output lately has just been like trans people bad, and they're not giving like good reasons.
Imagine
they're
having
just
time
saying,
to care.
Yeah. So let's see what CPU. Yes, so I'm currently looking at getting a 24-core i9 processor, if I remember correctly. I seem to remember that the simulation stuff is also better optimized on Blender or Pentium. One of the things is like, Blender's a free program that does not have a huge budget. It does have a budget. People do donate to the Blender Foundation, including some corporate sponsors that give a huge amount of money. But it is still a limited non-profit organization, and so they have optimized things for basically the most common hardware, and optimization for other hardware is definitely on the back burner. So, because they've only got so much time and so many employees and so much money. Kyle Pratt from $4.99 says, "Prepare for many bigoted U.S. Catholics to suddenly decide Catholic Church since Vatican II is invalid." That's already a thing, like Mel Gibson's dad. Actually, is Mel Gibson a trad? I mean, I know he's a trad cat, but is he like a sedevacantist or anything like that? I don't actually know. Wouldn't surprise me.
No, don't care.
Mel
Gibson is proof that Jews don't run Hollywood.
Yeah, because he would have been drummed out a long time ago. Then Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, "You can't let women in, Georgios. That's gay." Yeah, is liking women gay, guys? I don't know.
Fellas.
Hey, fellas, is it gay to love your wife? I've actually seen things that amount to basically that. Like, geez, come on, man. I had a train of thought. Oh, right, with the whole Catholic thing. I saw a bunch of people saying like, "Oh, I'll bet this will have a bunch of Catholics interested in looking into the Eastern Orthodox Church," and it's like, I feel like you might not have ever heard of the Patriarch of Constantinople, because he's not exactly what you're looking for either. If you're looking for like a church whose highest ranking cleric is on your side in terms of all these social issues and on terms of things like the environment and the economy and whatnot. Now, I'm not going to say that either Patriarch Bartholomew or Pope Leo XIV are like, hippie commie leftists, but they're definitely not the kind of people that are going to make MAGA types feel comfortable. So,
nope.
Yeah. Not that I don't have criticisms for both of them, I do. But they're definitely still not going to be pro-MAGA. It turns out there's actually a really big range between, like, hippie communist lefties and MAGA, and a lot of people in that range are just considered to be crazy lefties by a lot of the MAGA types, which is weird.
Anyone to the left
just
of me
anybody
is a
who's
crazy
not
fanatic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually think at this point it's just anybody who disagrees with me is a crazy leftist.
Yeah, basically. I mean, people called Pope Francis like left wing, and it's like he was not left wing in any meaningful way. He was left of, like, Ratzinger, who was don't even remember the guy's papal name anymore.
Oh, Palpatine.
Yeah, basically.
Beneface.
Yeah, he was
Benedict.
Benedict. Yeah,
Benedict. That's it.
He was left of Benedict, but like that doesn't make him
That's not
crazy
saying
lefty.
a lot.
Yeah. All right. So we are at about the time where we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get some more ice. I'm going to get another bit of
Should
mojito.
we at least just finish this section?
Yeah, let's finish this section. There we go.
Like 2 sentences.
Yeah, go for it.
In time, Noah and perhaps Shem and others could easily have learned another language if they were staying with one particular set of relatives with a different language, for example.
Bodhi,
that just happens.
Bodhi, that ruins the entire story. You're acknowledging the ability of these people to learn languages. That ruins the whole story. What is happening right now? The entire story depends on the idea that these people couldn't have just learned each other's languages.
That's right. That's right.
Right, it's like,
then
what's the point of splitting up the languages if people are like, oh, but my
go
cousin's
spend the
dating a
weekend
chick
with
from
your
over there.
cousins.
Yeah. I'm taking a drink for that one.
Then-
Learn it.
Then a translation of previous documents would be preserved to finally arrive at Moses. With this possibility, however, there is still quite a bit of speculation. You don't say.
Okay. So you know how popular franchises have fandoms, right? And
yeah.
You ever notice how like the fandoms love to come up with far-fetched and crazy ideas to patch up holes in the canon, like plot holes, or just mistakes made by the producers and writers and whatnot? Like for the longest time, the Star Wars fandom had this idea about like why is the Kessel Run measured in distance instead of time? That doesn't make any sense. And so they came up with this whole complex thing about like there was a swarm of black holes and he found the shortest route that skirted the closest to the black holes and whatnot. And I know that the Solo movie did make that canon eventually, but for a long time that was just a bunch of fans trying to come up with some convoluted, stupid reason why what Han said in the original Star Wars wasn't stupid. Which it was. It was just a stupid line.
It was.
And that's what
But
Bodhi
it's
is
just,
doing.
I guess the fact that the Han Solo movie was as disappointing as it was just proves the point that it's maybe not a good idea to make an entire movie on the basis of one throwaway line.
Yeah. And trying to fix a plot hole. Just let it be a plot hole. It's fine. Roshna #UpsetKeller for 199 says it's just Bible headcanon. And yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. This is just Bodhi saying, oh, hey, this story doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense. I'm going to just make up a whole bunch of stuff that sounds cool to me. And like, okay, that's fine. But he's now publishing this book as if like it means something, as if this is like, we're really talking about history here. And like no, Bodhi, you're just making up headcanon, which again, feel free to. It's fun, but like this isn't a serious thing. No one should ever take this seriously. My Unfinished Journey for $2.22 says, Hail Nero, Daps, and gang, and Bodhi ruining plots. All right, well, we are going to take a quick intermission. We will be back in just a little bit. So if you need to get up, grab yourself another drink, grab yourself a snack, use the bathroom, do whatever. In the meantime, we're going to have some music from one Bent Hovind, and we will be back in just a little bit. So hang tight. We are back. We have a few things to read here now that we are back. First, Lieutenant Nat the Navigator, not Lat the Navigator. What am I talking about? Says, funnily enough, a parsec is the distance Bodhi is usually away from a compelling point. It's true.
Very true.
Also, parsecs are such a weird unit. You know what a parsec is?
I don't know.
A parsec is the distance a star would be if it had 1 arc second of parallax over the course of 6 months, as seen from Earth. And no stars are that close, but it's still a ridiculously large number. And it's usually used to measure like distances between stars, but not like necessarily like between galaxies or anything. But yeah, it's like it's a really weird unit. But I guess it makes sense. Terrador's final form for 500 Argentinian pesos says, Noah. I'm sorry, Japheth. I just don't get what you're saying. Japheth. Hey, pa. Es que no. Oh, I've got a cough here. Es que tú no tienes. I'm not sure.
Were you reading?
Puta vida.
Oh, I see it.
I was like, what was the piece -T? I was like, oh, there's supposed to be a U in there. Yeah. Okay. Naranda puts for $2 says, tab crash with a Godzilla and a drink, and I will take a drink for that. Thank you very much.
Es que tú no entiendes para puto.
And then Lieutenant Matt the Navigator just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Let's take 5 drinks there. 1, 2, 3.
While you're doing that, I saw a post and it completely solved the problem of what the original language was.
Oh, what was it?
First language, talking shit.
Okay. Yeah. So now that we are back, I want to give a quick we're back now thing, which is to say, hey, this channel, as I'm sure you're all very well aware, almost entirely supported directly by you guys. The money I make on things like playing ads on videos is virtually negligible. I think it's less than 10% of what comes into the channel every month. And so if you want to support, there's so many great ways. You can join the Patreon. It's down in the description. You can gift things from my wish list, again, down in the description. You can join the channel with the join button right below this video. There's also merch listed. Also, both Kip and Vishanti, who are linked in the description, have Patreons. Vishanti also has a wish list. If you're interested in the wish list, it's actually 2 V's. So, but also, as of like right now, and this is a pretty temporary thing, but right now, if you are so inclined, there's also a GoFundMe going that is just for getting a new PC for me, because my current PC is starting to crap out. And if I don't have a PC to produce this channel on, then the channel just doesn't get new content, like, at all. Which I would rather it keep going. So, you know, if you are feeling so inclined, doing any of those greatly helps. Of course, also super chat, super thanks, super stickers, those are also great. And right now, we have a funding goal here. We're at 77% of the way there. And GoFundMe donations, of which we've had $155 so far this stream. So thank you very much. But those count 20% extra. So if you give $100, that actually counts as $120 for the thermometer here. You give $10, it's 12. You know how math works. You're smart. You're not flat earthers. You get it. Unless you are a flat earther, in which case, okay, 1 times 1 is 1, not 2. Don't believe Terry. And if you multiply a number by 1.2, that will give you the new number. And you might need a calculator to do that. That's okay. But trust me, it all works out in the end. And remember, 1 times 1 is 1, not 2. Okay, now that we have that figured out, for the flat earthers who might be watching, or just the creationists who are usually off by about 5 to 7 orders of magnitude, let's keep going. Vishanti, would you like to read if number 3 is correct?
Sure.
And in case we don't remember, because this one doesn't contain the number 3. Number 3 is, what if the original language was just lost?
Go ahead and scroll down just a little bit,
Yeah,
so that I can read more of it.
I was
in one
trying
time.
to,
Okay.
but I wasn't sure where my mouse cursor was, so I was actively trying to find it.
This has been the most popular view that this author has seen regarding the languages at Babel. This is usually why people ask how documents could have been passed to Moses and how he could understand them. See, these are all very reasonable questions.
Mhm.
Keep in mind that popularity does not dictate truth.
Oh, real quick, Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, given the source of many arguments we watch here, is that a rectal thermometer?
It may as well be.
You know what? If you think it's more fun to imagine it that way, then yes. I did not make that determination when I made it, so it can be whatever you feel like it should be.
I can't stop laughing. The lack of self-awareness is
Yeah.
just
It's strong enough and dumb enough.
egregious.
I'll take a drink for it.
There are a couple possibilities for faithful transmission of accounts.
Mm.
Point A. Noah and his sons and their wives would still have recollections of the pre-flood world. In fact, consider the following possibilities. You should have.
Oh, goody.
Oh, good.
Adam and Methuselah were both
Speculation.
alive for a long time together. If there are not gaps in the Genesis 5 genealogy, shouldn't it be there no gaps? Whatever. Then their lives overlapped by hundreds of years to the 17th power. They could have easily had years of direct conversation. Noah and Methuselah had many years alive together. You just said that.
Mm-hmm.
Methuselah died in the year of the flood when Noah was 600 years old. And surely the two conversed quite often. Yes, surely. With
It's
Shem, Ham, and Japheth too.
Literally no reason to
So,
suppose that
I
at
mean,
all.
Noah
I don't know. I'm starting to
would
think
have many
maybe-
memories and much knowledge about the pre-flood world, and even about Adam's actions through Methuselah. Like, people just
I don't know.
hang out with their grandparents and great-grandparents and great
I'm
grandparents.
starting to think that Bodhi has read the Genesis Apocryphon. That's what I'm
I-
starting to think.
doubt it.
I doubt it too, but I will say this. It is possible that he has had things from the Genesis Apocryphon filtered down to him from other creationists, because I do know some creationists have read it. And because the thing is, like, people sometimes ask me if I really mean this, but there are tiers to creationism, right? There are creationists who have, like, actual degrees, who are actually they do read things beyond just creationist literature and just like what's in just the Bible, and who come up with new ideas and stuff like that, right? And then you have sort of like the mid-level creationists who, like, they don't have advanced degrees, but they've got like a bachelor's in something or other. Like, they know how to read and do basic math, and they don't come up with a lot of like ideas, but they spend some time synthesizing ideas and turning it out in reasonably digestible, like, nuggets of creationist nonsense that they will send out to lay creationists. And then you've got like the bottom of the barrel, like Matt Powell and Raw Matt, who basically are just dumber than a pile of rotten turnips, and who have never had an original idea in their lives, and can't even tell
That's
that most of
pretty
the
dumb.
ideas that they have are mutually contradictory anyway. So Bodhi is in that middle tier, right? Bodhi's not as dumb as like a Raw Matt or a Matt Powell or something like that. They're little above that. In fact, he's even really a little above Kent Hovind, all of whose degrees are fake. So, like, I don't think that he's read the Genesis Apocryphon, but some of the people at the higher tier, the people who are actually coming up with ideas in creationism, who actually have real degrees, who are actually reasonably smart, which of course means I think they're probably dishonest, those are the people who've read that, and he's had those ideas filtered down to him. Roshan, #upset Keller for $4.99 says, when Tower of Babel happened, God wiped everyone's memories. See also Mudflood and the Great Reset.
Ugh.
Oh no. The Mudflood.
No.
Oh, the Mudflood. Is the Mudflood stupider than Young Earth creationism? It seems like it.
It's pretty up there.
Because the thing is, like, at least with Young Earth creationism, we're talking about things that are so far back in terms of, like, human existence that we just don't have great records about what was going on anywhere at the time. So you can kind of hide a lot of nonsense in, like, the fog that history sort of just disappears into as you go back more than 4,000 years. But with the Mudflood, it's like, hey, you see this city that was built in 1892? What if it was actually from before the Great Reset and it was made by giants? And it's like, dude, it was built in the 1890s. What are you talking about?
Ugh.
How? Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says the objective moral framework in question. Thank you. And let me update the counters here. We're actually really, really close. And to get some Remember, if you want Ben to get free pizza, the most cost-effective is the GoFundMe. I think he gets free pizza at like 95 or 96%. I'm not positive though. So if it's not the case, I'm telling you now that I don't actually remember exactly where it is. So don't come at me. All right, Vishanti, you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
I need to.
Oh, we
need
got.
to thank you.
I
Okay.
know what I'm doing.
Dapper's a professional.
Okay, we'll take a drink for Dapper's a professional right now. Here we go.
After Babel had Noah's language changed, he or his sons could have written what they knew in the new language. What? Just because you speak a language doesn't mean you have a writing system.
Right? They apparently just invented the writing system.
You get them.
Was that a
it's
supernatural miracle too?
Yes, Bodhi thinks that God gave Adam a writing system. He doesn't know what it was. He doesn't know how it worked because Bodhi doesn't understand how different writing systems work. Like I guarantee you, if you ask Bodhi, like, "Hey, Bodhi, what's the determinative in a logographic writing system?" He would just have no clue at all, just nothing. But he thinks that there was some kind of writing system that Adam had. Otherwise, how could he have written that Toledote?
Yeah. These could have been the documents that Moses received. However, this view is problematic because it doesn't mesh well with the Toledote breakdown mentioned before.
I'm taking a drink. Come on. I love that we're just assuming that that's a real thing that Bodhi, like, okay, Bodhi, you had this idea of Toledote as a written record, but now you're just assuming that that's real, which is not a traditional view, by the way, of the composition of the Pentateuch, right? Like, you're not going to find, like, ancient Christian or Jewish sources who are like, yeah, see, Moses was collecting all these documents from Adam and Abraham and Noah and Enoch, and he was writing down that, like, that's not an idea that you find anywhere.
I think
this is why I don't think he's read the Genesis Apocryphon, because a lot of the like hardcore younger creationists, they only mention literature from the Deuterocanon or other sources if it already aligns up with what they've determined. Which is why Kent Hovind likes the Book of Yasher, because even though it has crazy fables in it about like the 12 sons of Jacob having freaking superpowers, if you've never read the story of the Revenge on Shechem, it's like reading an Avengers comic, because like one of the, I don't remember if it's Judah, I think it was, his battle cry is so loud that it causes the women in the city of Shechem to miscarry like instantly.
Of course.
Simeon and Levi have like Spider-Man wall crawling powers. Like, it is just
you just reminded me of something. I was every once in a while I check to see what the Facebook Young Earth Creationists are doing. And I found a video from one who was complaining about like the Book of Enoch and how too many Christians are starting to think that the Book of Enoch is something to be taken seriously. And his big argument for why the Book of Enoch is ridiculous and you shouldn't take it seriously is because it has Enoch speak as an infant. And I'm like, oh, my guy, Genesis, the book you do take seriously, has a serpent speaking. I do not understand why it is that an infant is beyond the pale, but a donkey and a serpent are totally fine.
And it's an infant, that's beyond the pale.
It's like, if the book you're taking seriously has things that are at least as ridiculous, you don't get to point to those ridiculous things and say, well, obviously not. You need some better reason. And look, you can, within a Christian framework, come up with reasonable explanations as to why you think Enoch probably shouldn't be taken seriously in the same way as Genesis, that are at least internally consistent. Pointing out that it's ridiculous because it has a baby talking is not one of those internally consistent reasons if you're going to take the stories about Balaam and the serpent seriously. Meat Permits Tad for $2 says, going to drink until I can recall the stream.
Jeez, really?
Enjoy.
Sable Eagle right above that says, and God said to Noah, make the boat 2 kilometers long, 400 meters wide, with 10 decks and dehumidifiers, because, dude, you're going to have to carry the Oxford University's whole library in this thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Back to point B. If the previous documents were in a language completely foreign to them, the original language that no one had any longer. Yes, Bodhi, we read the no one has more condescension towards their audience than
What
you,
is this?
creationists.
Next.
Oh, we're going to talk about it.
Linguists could
Oh.
study and learn it, and over time make a
Linguists.
translation of it.
Okay, first of all,
Linguist.
Oh.
linguistics as a
Oh.
scientific and scholarly endeavor did not exist until the modern period. There were grammarians and there were scholars who learned other languages,
Wow.
but the idea of studying language as a concept, as its own thing, as a separate field of study, very recent. Further,
Ugh.
you can't just translate a language if all you have is a text in it.
Nope.
You need to have something more. Like if you found a language
Steve,
isolate in isolation,
The Rosetta Stone.
yeah.
Yep.
Or the Behistun inscription.
And look, Egyptian isn't
Right.
even a language isolate. It has relatives. It didn't matter.
No, exactly.
They still couldn't translate it.
Same with Akkadian, right?
Right.
And it literally took taking the time to sit down and do the work of a careful comparison with the Elamite and the Old Persian to figure it out, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the way that we deciphered Mayan, that took a whole heck of a long time, and we had, much like Egyptian, dozens, hundreds of carvings with their, pictographs and hieroglyphs, and people were like, I don't know how to make heads or tails of this. So just because you have copies of their text doesn't mean that you can just translate it.
And these events that we're talking about, these
So
decipherments
ridiculous.
of these other ancient languages that do have extensive corpuses and do have related languages, that still took until the modern period, until after the actual advent of linguistics as a field in order to get done. The idea that ancient scribes in the Iron Age or the Bronze Age, because Bodhi thinks Moses was real, that those people could take an entirely foreign text and translate it with no key text is just absolutely insane. I'm taking a drink for it.
That's pure and utter nonsense. I like what Triceratops says, and this was supposed to fix the plot holes.
Right? Lieutenant Matt the Navigator says, Balaam's donkey. Am I a joke to you?
My joke to you. Yeah, really.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $2 also says, but what if you have magic rocks in a hat? Now, there we go.
Didn't think of that.
Yeah, we didn't think of that.
No.
Yeah.
That would help Bodhi.
And I mean, to be fair, the Urim and the Thummim are in fact biblical artifacts. That's straight out of the Torah right there. So
Yep.
I mean, now what are the chances that the actual Urim and Thummim from the temple ended up in upstate New York? I would argue low. Yeah, I would argue low.
Low.
But hey, what do I know?
Well, I don't know.
Oh my God.
It was the colonial period, so maybe still low. That
would
maybe
get them
not.
to London, not upstate New York, buried in a hill.
Yeah, right.
That's fair.
Ridiculous. Okay.
Okay.
I like what Terador's final form in the chat says. Let Bodhi prove his hypothesis with the Voynich.
Yes.
Yes.
Bodhi, here's the Voynich manuscript.
Good.
Read it for me.
Here we go.
What you got? Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says, at the very least, I'm happy for Bodhi that he got so much enjoyment out of a 10-sentence story that has no bearing on the message of Jesus.
Right?
Yeah. To be fair,
I
can't say that Bodhi is not serious about talking about the Bible. Not necessarily learning about the Bible, but talking about the Bible. He's very serious about that. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Such a document could have been what Moses received. Although this would seem the most unlikely possibility, as it would be a difficult task to accomplish satisfactorily. Trying to crack a language has proven a difficult but not impossible task for modern scholars.
Yeah, Bodhi, under certain circumstances, which
Wow.
do not seem to be met under this idea. I actually don't remember at all what number 4 is. We're going to scroll up to number 4 so we can figure out what the heck that one is. I don't remember. Where is it? No, if number 1 is correct. Where's his list of possibilities? Oh, here we go. 4. All languages that came out of Babel would have been combined into one big... Oh, yeah, that's the reason I made the thumbnail of our creationist tie Like, what if the original language was actually one big language that had all the languages together, like a Voltron Megazord of languages? Like, yeah, Bodhi, sure. What if? That doesn't make any sense, but sure. And the thing is, like, that number 4 possibility, the fact that he's even entertaining it, that he's even bothering to write about it, is like the most monolingual coded thing that has ever existed.
Uh-huh.
Like, no one. And when I say monolingual, look, I barely consider myself to not be monolingual. And most people are like, what are you talking about? You speak all sorts of languages. It doesn't feel like it. I feel like I speak one language, and I know a little bit of a few others. Right? That's the internal experience of being me. And when I say this is the most monolingual coded, I mean, like, you found some guy in, like, rural USA who has barely even heard that Spanish even exists. And his entire linguistic world is taken up by just American English and mostly just his local dialect because he doesn't really watch the news. That's the kind of monolingual thing I'm talking about here. We're talking about, like, some guy out in, like, Appalachia in a place where they don't even have reliable electricity yet and they haven't figured out indoor plumbing. And that guy only speaks English. That's the kind of monolingual nonsense we're talking about here. All right, so I guess this is me now. If number 4 is correct, how would any document have been translated? I don't know, because number 4 being correct is, like, it's not even a coherent idea. But okay, the same reasons for number 3 being correct would apply here, although translation would be easier if some of the original documents may have been in their portion of the language. What? So, okay. So apparently, Bodhi is imagining that if number 4 is correct, then, like, Adam is writing out this text, presumably in a single script, but, like, some of it's in, like, Proto-Indo-European, and some of it is in, like, Proto-Afro-Asiatic. And then he switches it up, and he's like, oh, what if I put in some Khoisan in here? And then, like, the next sentence he's like, oh, man, what about Athabascan? That'd be a good language family to have the next sentence be in. Like, is that actually what Bodhi thinks the pre-Babel world was like? People were just picking, like, language families to just put sentences in, and everyone knew, like, the base language of every language family?
Just imagining how this works too, where suddenly Adam goes, I wrote the last column, right to left. I'm gonna switch it up now and do a Berfostadon.
I mean, I kind of like,
and then maybe go left to right.
I kind of wish we'd stuck with Bistrophodon because it's easier on your eyes, right? You go from left to right, go down, and now you just go right to left. Just keep going back and forth.
Right.
But no, we had to have a consistent writing direction. Get out of here.
But the fact that that's the mind-blowing thing here too, right? Like the fact that we see this as an optional aspect of writing in the earliest stages, right?
Yep.
It just at this point in time, Bodhi.
Oh, you know what? Roshna hashtag Upside Keller makes a really interesting point. So Roshna says for 499, number 4 is like front-loading genetic diversity in Adam and Eve. And yeah, that's another interesting thing, right? Because one of the things that creationists like to say is that Adam and Eve had maximum possible...
They had all of it.
All the genetic diversity. Now, there's actually too much human genetic diversity for that to make sense, but we'll ignore that for now. But yeah, it is kind of like that. And maybe that ties into this weird idea that creationists have that Adam was like a hypergenius, which there's nothing in the text that indicates that. And the only thing that we get, the only like reason I've seen for that is like, well, he was able to name all the animals in a day. Like, yeah, that's more likely because the authors didn't know how many animals existed.
There's like
27
But
also, if they were like super mega hyper smart, why didn't they build colonies on the moon? Why didn't they go to Mars? Why didn't they make satellites? Where's their internet?
Oh, because the firmament would have stopped them.
Oh.
Or they did, and everyone just forgot.
Also a possibility.
Oh, yes.
That's why NASA actually never went back to the moon, because they found the antediluvian lunar colony.
Yes.
This is getting into monument mythos territory. Found the Lunarians.
All right, let's see. Regardless of something, this would be a near impossibility. Okay, Bodhi, you're probably right about that. Oh, wait, is Bodhi going to show a tiny modicum of self-awareness about how languages work? First, the grammar, syntax, vocabulary, and even the vowel and consonant sounds. Oh no. Bodhi's like, did you know that other languages have different sounds in them, you guys? What? Example, English,
Wow.
Hungarian, Russian, Arabic, and Chinese. Okay, sure, I guess those are examples of languages, Bodhi.
Mhm.
Are so utterly different that you know that whatever, Bodhi. Secondly, each of these languages is a coherent whole, allowing for people in each language.
What does that
verbally-
even mean?
It means that
I don't.
it's a
But this says I'm getting.
it's a reasonably internally consistent system of communication for encoding information and getting it to other people. Allowing for people in each language to verbally communicate about every aspect of reality. I mean, at least the ones they have
Every
words for.
aspect of reality.
I'll tell you what, Bodhi. You go find, like, an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon, and you try to learn their language and then discuss in their language about, let's say, particle physics.
Isosceles
it goes.
triangle.
If the languages were once combined, the original language would have had a massive amount of redundancy. Yep. Though this possibility sounds interesting, God can do anything. It may
Is
not
this
be the
where-
best
is this-
possibility.
Is this his way? Is this Bodhi's way of saying that languages are irreducibly complex?
Oh
Ooh,
no.
I don't know. It might be. It might be. Which would be weird because we also know that they evolve and like have done so. Like, historically.
Exactly right. And he seemed like he does show an awareness of that, but it almost sounds like to me, to my ears, to what I'm hearing here is that the languages that came out of Babel were like root languages. Like there was just they were the base at which, and almost like
although
almost
he's
like
inconsistent about it
like
because he seems
individual-
to think that like various Afroasiatic language like subfamilies came out of Babel to explain why like the Edomites and the Israelites and like
Right.
the Akkadians had different
Right.
languages. So he's inconsistent
God,
there.
just none of this just works.
No, it doesn't.
Does it?
Nope.
Boy.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, "What's the English word for a person that needs to be slapped?" Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. It might be
A
Nazi.
Nazi?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it
I
might be
think it's Nazi.
Yeah. Although I guess there are probably people who need to be slapped that don't fall under that category. So like I don't know.
suppose, but
That's definitely not the word for someone who needs to be slapped in English.
true. Sometimes it felt like my kids needed to be slapped, and yeah, let's not.
Okay.
not go
Well,
there.
why don't you read the conclusion then?
Did you read this last
Yes.
this last sentence?
Yes, I did.
Paragraph? Oh, okay,
Yep.
though the possibility. Okay, yeah. God can do anything. I think that's the main message of this book, isn't it? That God can do anything.
I mean, that's to be fair,
All
the
right.
main message of
And
Bodhi.
let's just pick our favorite thing that God can do. Conclusion. Regardless of which may be true, previous documents arriving in the hands of Moses they're not a big problem.
I'm going to take a
Okay.
drink, given that all of your options had big problems, Bodhi.
Yep.
I'm just the without even considering all the additional problems of Moses, after 400 years of slavery in Egypt,
Getting a hold of the
receiving documents of it, just that.
maybe after he left,
continuously
Pharaoh
going
handed
back-
them over. He was like, "Well, now that you're gone, I guess these are for you now."
Yes. I just, people just don't grasp what needs to take place and what needs to be in place. The sorts of institutional supports that need to be in place for any kind of Scrabble system in antiquity to be possible. But okay. Taking time to learn and translate previous documents or recalling previous conversations would ensure that some information arrived in an understandable language post-Babel, whether through Noah and his sons or another means of translation. So he's just given up here,
Yep.
right? He's just said,
Yeah, he's like-
who the fuck knows?
None of the
I don't
possibilities
know.
that I can think of work, but I'm sure it happened anyway.
That's it. Okay, because here we are. It is also important to not to forget. We gotta always remember that Jesus said something. it is also important not to forget that Jesus spoke face to face with Moses.
And his citation for this is
my
Exodus
God,
33:11.
It feels like I had a stream about this yesterday.
We did yesterday. Ah,
I mean, it says that Yahweh spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend, and he would return to the camp. But his servant Joshua, son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. I'm looking for Jesus here, Bodhi.
nope.
Is
It doesn't even
it
say
Joshua?
Moloch in there.
it Joshua, the son of? Is this Jesus? Oh, where's Jesus?
See,
Bodhi?
you got to understand that what Bodhi is doing is he's letting you know that really the author of Genesis, which is Moses, was actually a Trinitarian, even though the idea of the Trinity wouldn't really be established for a few thousand years.
This is my stream. I streamed about this yesterday.
And so because Moses was in fact an actual Trinitarian, even though he didn't describe that terribly well in any of his books, that when Moses says Yahweh, he just means Jesus, and you just need to get over that.
Is that what now, as someone who admittedly never really got it, I'm fairly sure. Trinitarianism. Is that what it means, really? Is that you can just replace Yahweh with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit in every place? Is that what it is?
Well,
that is correct.
Generally, the answer is Jesus.
The dogma is no one can see God and live, plus Jesus saying no one's ever seen the Father. I've revealed him.
Yeah.
So therefore, anytime it says God spoke to someone, like, no, that's actually Jesus.
It's got to be Jesus.
You're seeing
really
pre-incarnate advent of Jesus, looking forward to his eventual incarnation, which is how you can look at him in the first place. Which, that whole idea, it's clever. It's clever, and it's made to resolve internal conflicts about the idea that no one can see God and live, but then there are people who reportedly see God. And you're basically saying, okay, well, if we have this Trinity idea, and obviously you can see Jesus because he had a human body, then we can import him whenever people are seemingly violating the rule that you can't see God. And because Jesus said that no one has seen the Father, then whenever it's talking about no one can see God and whatnot, what they're really talking about is the Father. And then when it comes to the Holy Spirit, because that's sort of a behind-the-scenes inspiring people to write, the appearance of the Holy Spirit is more in terms of things like the authors of the Bible rather than like appearing in the stories. And that's how you get the Trinity involved in the whole thing. And, like, it's definitely not in the text. But then again, a lot of the theology of various religions that have holy texts don't come directly out of the text. Instead, they're attempts to rectify, basically, plot holes. Right?
Yeah.
And, like...
I'm
going to say this. There's absolutely no way in which you can argue that the authors intended this to be a pre-incarnation vision of Jesus whom they didn't know about yet, and that's actually what they had in mind. There's just no way to argue that.
They saw through a mirror darkly. They just didn't understand. They saw a shadow of things to come.
But on the other hand, if you want to try to puzzle through this as like basically just doing the headcanon fanfic idea, I mean, it's not the worst attempt to come up with like how to fit all this together. Like, it's better than most of Bodhi's attempts. It's at least internally coherent.
Fair.
Ambi Quantum Yiddish Z for $5 says, but behold, but I feel like you should know that Mormons pronounce Urim like Urim. Oh, yeah, Urim. Yeah, I know. And Thummim like Thummim. Yeah, look, here's the thing. I know that a lot of Mormons like to pronounce things as if they had been written down in English in the King James, and then just bring that pronunciation forward along with some sound changes. I think that's a silly thing to do, and I refuse to participate in this. The only words that I will pronounce the way that Mormons want them pronounced are the words that they made up themselves, like Lehi and Nephi. You know what? If you want to pronounce those like that, but they're just made up words.
It feels like aurally to my ears. It feels like someone scraping a fork across a
Yeah.
porcelain plate.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm okay-ish with it because those aren't actual words that they're mispronouncing. Those are just the names of characters that Joseph Smith made up one day. Or at the very least, whoever he plagiarized from. I personally think that Joseph Smith is the one who wrote those. I don't think that it was beyond his capacity to write the Book of Mormon. I know there's some people who disagree with me, and they think that he had some other source, and there are potential sources, but I personally don't think that he plagiarized those sources, because I don't think there's enough similarity. I think Joseph Smith just made up those names one day, and being... I'm going to say a dumbass, but that's not fair, because he clearly wasn't an idiot. Being someone who was not well formally educated, and certainly when he started making up these stories, had no education in Hebrew, although he did later learn a fair bit of Hebrew, according to his Hebrew teacher.
At least he did that, right? That's more than Bodhi.
Yeah, so he did learn a fair bit of Hebrew, apparently. But most of this was, post Book of Mormon. So,
Right.
yeah, that's him looking at the King James, figuring out how to pronounce these names on his own, and apparently a lot of them just rhyme with Jedi. And then just going with that and making up new names that felt like Old Testament-ish names. That's all that happened.
What he was actually doing was prophesizing the advent of the Star Wars series.
Okay.
People just didn't understand it at the time. Also, I'm not really sure. A Coyote in the chat says, in my opinion, the idea of the Holy Spirit got started in the Maccabean Revolt, where people started experiencing God's presence in the spirit of the community. I think that's bizarre because in the first chapter of Genesis, it says the Ruach of God hovered over the face of the water. So,
I mean, look, the idea of the Holy Spirit is a complex thing that has no one particular origin that you can point to. It's a lot of different threads of, like, the activity of God and the Spirit of God and things like that, all filtering through into Christianity. And I don't think we can point to one thing. But on the other hand, I don't think that, we can't ignore Maccabean, like the spirituality presented in Maccabees in terms of later development in Christianity.
Ring. Oh, it's someone from Safed calling. Oh, that's Rabbi Isaac Luria trying to tell us about the Shekinah. Oh, what's that you say, Rabbi Luria? That's the divine feminine aspect of God, and you're just going to obsess over that part and really not the other stuff? Okay, cool. Thanks. Beep.
Roshna #upset Keller for 199 says Trinitarian /fic. I don't know if I would go so far as to say that it's /fic, but it definitely has a lot of the same impulses that fanfiction has in the first place, right? Which is to say, like, hey, there's stuff that doesn't fully make sense. We're going to find a way to harmonize all of it so that we can think of this as an internally coherent narrative when it isn't really, right? Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says, has Bodhi even left his country, his state, his district? Does he even know that people on TV are real? So I do know that he has left at least his state, because he has done speaking tours and whatnot outside of his state. I think that he's been to a few other countries. I think it's mostly been in the Anglosphere, but I don't actually know for certain. Does he know that people on TV are real? I have no idea. It's possible that he thinks that the TV actually just traps tiny little people inside and that they dance for his pleasure. That's a possibility. He seems stupid enough to think that. All right. So if there were
He's
any...
probably a wrestling fan.
And he probably thinks that it's all real.
Read Demon Trigger's comment in the chat.
Probably do that because I'm not sure where it is.
I don't see it either.
It's literally the most recent chat. Demon Trigger.
The most recent chat is Aiden's Miscellany.
Right above that.
Oh, there he is. Trinitarian /fic.
That was Roshna #upset Keller's super chat, though.
Trinitarian /fic is just masturbation?
Yeah.
Oh, see, you should have read it the whole time because I don't see that anywhere.
It's literally above Aiden's Miscellany.
I have it set to top chat.
But you don't see it. I had to set it to the live chat.
I'm taking a drink because I didn't set it to live chat. That's my
bad.
Right? Yeah.
My God.
All right. Well.
Okay, so Mikhail...
Wrong one. Shit. Sorry. Both of the horns are right above each other, so...
Mikhail Dominiak, who's been a member for 6 months and is at the Amniot level, says, my computer decided to crash twice in different ways while playing the stream, so I can only conclude that AIG just working with I don't know what that is. It's in
He just
Polish.
evolved into Polish.
Yeah. But then there's a Godzilla, and I'm going to take a drink because that chat is both thematically appropriate, and I'm sure it's supposed to be a
Yes.
bag of dicks.
Good.
All right, so let's get through this because we only have a little while, and also
Yes.
we are very close to Bent getting free pizza, but we're not there. I think we
Oh,
could do it,
Let's get him.
but
let's get 'em some.
I mean, maybe chat wants Bent to starve today. It's possible.
Uh,
Okay, if there were
starting
any
to
discrepancies,
really want pizza.
if there were any discrepancies, he would have had the all-knowing God who invented the different languages
this
in
is
his tent with him.
Me, isn't it?
No, it's me because we're in the conclusion. Kip, how much Baileys have you had?
No,
was me.
dude.
It was me.
You read number 4, and then I started reading the conclusion.
Oh, well, fine. Finish it then.
God, you're wow. It's
Wow.
like amateur hours.
I've had a
here.
bunch of rum. That's my excuse.
Holy cow. If there were any discrepancies, he would have had an all-knowing God who invented the different languages
No.
in his tent with him.
The all-knowing God. Not the all-knowing God. The all-knowing God.
The all-knowing God in his tent with him.
Hey,
What
Bodhi.
are they doing?
If
that
the
tent
all-knowing God is correcting Moses's errors in Genesis, why didn't God ever bother to tell Moses that actually, if you have your cattle or your goats or whatever your livestock mate in front of stripy sticks, that does not actually influence the pattern of the coats of the offspring? Maybe God could have helped out with that part of Genesis.
Except for the one time it
There's ways he
totally
can help.
did. Duh.
Yeah.
I mean, donkeys don't normally just talk, except for that one time they just did. Just
Olivia-
that one donkey, though.
Olivia
Don't worry
Williams
about
for
it.
2 Beaver Bucks says, helping with pizza, Mothra. And we'll take a drink for the Mothra. Thank you very much.
So guys, because Moses is hanging, or because the all-knowing God is hanging out in his tent.
Obviously.
Moses should not have had any problems with accuracy or translation. That's it.
Joshua was hotboxing
Even
in there,
if-
man. Let him enjoy it.
Wait, hold on. If he's just directly getting all this stuff downloaded to him by God in his tent, then why the heck do we have this conversation about preserving
Right.
texts from the patriarchs?
Right.
Just say he got it from Jesus right there. Bodhi,
I
what is the
literally
point of
said
this
that.
chapter?
Like an hour ago.
Yeah, you did. That's fair. We got a couple things. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says he's in the tent with him. Definitely /fic. Then Dutch Mammoths Never Saw Snow Tunicate gift membership, and we'll take a drink for that. Then Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $2 says, in a tent, God and Moses do cunning linguistics.
They literally are. They
Ah.
are doing that.
Yeah, it does
That
seem
is
like it.
100% what's happening.
And also,
It really,
do remember,
it is.
if your goal is to get the Ben Gets Free Pizza, donations to the GoFundMe count 120%. So it is a slightly more
There you go.
cost effective if your goal is to get him pizza. All right, keep going.
Even if
Moses
received documents that needed translation, God, this is like, switching. It feels like the vacillation back and forth between characters here was inspired by some of the source critical issues in the Bible itself.
Hold up. We just got a new donation. And I want to say a big thank you to Alan, who just donated $100.
Oh.
Wow.
So that's definitely getting
excellent
free pizza.
We're there, right?
Oh yeah, we're definitely there.
Nice. Very good. Christ knew the original language. Wow. It is doubtful, though, that this was the way it was done. Oh, okay.
Why even bring it up?
Why? Like,
I hate this so much.
He's trying to pad the length of his book.
Keep in
Gotta get that
mind
minimum word count.
that Moses was inspired as he wrote, and at this point, like what does this even mean? As were all of the scripture writers. any word plays like man woman. Ish. Well, for some reasons he's well. I mean, yeah, ish isha in
I mean,
Hebrew.
I don't
I mean,
hate-
ordinarily we don't
What's that
double
wordplay?
the 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 sheen sound in our
Is it geminate when it takes
in
that?
our transliterations. Pardon?
Is it actually geminate though when it takes the feminine suffix though? Because I could imagine that being an aspect of like ancient Hebrew, is that you geminate the final consonant if you're going to add a feminine ending to it. I don't actually
I mean,
know.
it might. I have to go. It might be. But it's an interesting way. It usually you don't. Nobody writes it like that, even if it is.
Well, also you don't
So,
normally write
Also,
the sh with a digraph anyway.
That's not wordplay though, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's just
No, that's true.
two different genders.
That's true. Very good point.
Pat
It's
Pippo
just the
for
same goddamn word.
10 Polish zloty says AIG jest BR? I don't know. I don't know Polish. I'm sorry. But I'm going to take a drink for it anyway because I'm pretty sure I know what it says. So thank you very much. There are
Bodhi.
languages I'm not gonna get to. Sorry.
No. Bodhi, wordplay here would be pointing out that Eve's name is Chava because she's the mother of all the living. That's
Gotta say it in Hebrew so people detect it.
But
Her
see,
name is Chava because she's the mother
Chava,
of all
mother of all the Chaim. Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
but see, what you're forgetting is that Ish and Isha sound similar, and so every time the word woman appears, it's actually wordplay. So take that.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this would have been inspired by God through Moses. It is highly possible that word plays like this were also in. This is the dumbest. They were also in the original language.
Okay.
I also want to say thank you to
That's
Mikkel, who just donated another $100.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a fancy computer you're getting.
Yeah, it's
Dapper.
gonna be really. I'm gonna get a top of the line computer.
It's gonna be really nice. Yeah, you are.
It's gonna be the most
Interestingly
expensive thing I
enough.
have in the house.
In English, for example, we have man and woman. God could easily have had language similarities survive through different languages.
I'm sorry, is Bodhi thinking that that without God, human languages wouldn't be able to distinguish between man and woman? Like, is that the point he's trying to make? Because Bodhi, I don't think it requires God's help for languages to come up with this. Most societies have some kind of gender norms that more or less correlate with biological sex in terms of primary sex characteristics. And well, there are lots of languages and cultures that have alternate options on top of those that, you know, Western society is only recently coming to terms with. Pretty much all of them do have a word that pretty directly translates man and woman, and I don't think it requires divine intervention for people to notice that primary sex characteristics exist and to then develop cultural norms that take those into account. I feel like if you just ever seen naked humans, you might notice that primary sex characteristics.
He's just doing. That's too thunk, Dapper. He's going with the shared element in the both words is the word man. Therefore,
it's literally just
wordplay.
that.
Therefore,
oh my god,
that's divine.
Oh, so by the way, it's not clever wordplay. Here's what it actually is. Old English man, M-A-N-N, just means human, means person, basically. Werman meant man, and withban meant woman, because wer meant basically male or man in the masculine sense, and with meant wife or woman. That's where the word wife comes from. And then just ordinary sound changes that you can trace all the way down from Old English or Anglo-Saxon to Modern English wore away the wer part of man, leaving just man, with both the masculine context as well as maintaining the just person context. That's where we have words like mankind. That doesn't actually mean just men. It means men and women. That's why English has that weird thing right there, whereas most languages don't actually have that problem. and there's no wordplay. It's just literally the word for man in the masculine sense was just the word for male person, and the word for woman was just the word female person, and you just stick them together, and then like 1,200
That's
years
it.
of language change happened.
Yeah.
That's
It's
literally
just
it. It's
easy.
not that complex.
And the fact that other languages don't have something that's analogous to that, like Spanish has hombre and
Yeah.
mujer,
Okay,
which
what's the
don't have,
wordplay?
Any shared anything. It's just,
Yeah.
this is so dumb.
Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, to try and preserve Hebrew, some older Spanish Bibles translate ish and isha as varón and varona, which is like saying man and she-man. That's weird.
Oh my.
That is weird. Don Giovanni, Emir of Hakan, who's been a member for 8 months and is at the amniote level, says the pre-Babel language was Atlantean. How else could they all speak? Could they speak all modern languages? Here's a fun thing. For the Disney movie Atlantis, they hired Mark Okrand, who also created Klingon, to create the Atlantean language. So it's a fun little fact. It's the same guy who created Klingon created the Atlantean language for Disney's Atlantis.
Feel like you've mentioned that before.
I probably
have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, God, let's repeat the point here. God could easily have had language similarities survive through different languages. It's just that easy.
Sure, why not?
This author would expect such things even from the original language, since God, the author of language, has such infinite knowledge. Like, why does this book have to be 350 pages if we're just going to end up on God done it? Like,
I mean, it's a good question.
I mean, that's it, right? That's it. That's all he did. This entire chapter for him to go, God did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That was it.
I'm gonna hold it here so that way I know which page we were on, because that's how I keep track, is by just having it up on screen.
See, the point is, if he just came right out and said, "Well, God did it," that doesn't sound intellectual enough. So he had to pad it with several hundred pages of BS.
You can't write a book called The Tower of Babel, open page 1, and have God did it, the end.
The end.
Yeah, so, I mean, the thing is,
and sell the book.
That is what almost all of Young Earth creationism comes down to. It's just like, we're just gonna slap God on top of anything, right? It's like the flex tape commercial, right? Like, you've got all these things like the heat problem, linguistics data not lining up, ancient ruins that predate the flood, all pouring out of this, and then you just take a bit of flex tape that has written on it, God did it, and you just slap it on there, and now you're done. That's it.
That's right.
Pippo for 25, Polish Loti says, let me help you out, Dapper. AIG jest Paczko Fujarek. Thank you very much. I hope that wasn't too bad. That was just me spot reading the IPA, which included at least one diacritic that I'm not super familiar with, because, spoiler, I don't remember all the diacritics from the IPA. Just the ones I actually bother to use fairly frequently, which means if it's one that's not used in any of the languages I know a little bit of. Wait, you don't know much of the IPA, Kip?
Not much, no.
Oh, Kip, we gotta.
I know.
We gotta tutor you in the IPA. The IPA is great stuff.
I know.
It's really good. I mean, how are you going to learn a new language if you don't know the IPA?
No. I mean,
Immersion?
you learn it as you go.
People do,
which is yes.
Yeah, but the thing is, even with immersion, it's easier if you have the context of what sounds are available, because it makes it easier to identify what sounds are actually being used. Like, it is actually an aid. It also is going to make it faster for you to sound like you don't have a foreign accent, because if you actually know what people are actually saying, rather than just trying to listen vaguely to what sounds similar to sound in your own native language, it's going to be easier to get the target language right.
It's just going around your elbow to get to your ass, man.
No, there's a reason that linguists are so insistent on the IPA. Aircraft Carrier Woe Class for $5 says, at least Young Earth Creationists and Flurps are the top competitors in the Mental Gymnastics Olympics. Yeah. Also, AIG ist ein Haufenspanse. Yeah, we'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Roshan at hashtag Upset Keller for 199 says, how do male versus female origins? I actually don't remember the etymology of male versus female. I would have to double check that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't actually remember specifically the etymology there. But hey, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much, you guys. You guys have been amazing. We got $355 added to the GoFundMe at last I checked. I'm going to double check to make sure it hasn't gone up again. Nope. So, yeah, $355 on there. We are well past the point of Bent getting free pizza. In fact, even if I just go with the GoFundMe donations at normal face value, we still are well past Bent gets free pizza, right? It goes from like 150 whatever to 134. So I want to say thank you so much. Guys, what is coming up next on the channel? So on Tuesday, we're going to be doing the next Kent with Bent. I'm going to be wearing a tutu on top of my meat suit for that one. So yeah, tune in for that. So that's going to be on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, which is 9 p.m. Eastern. Then on Wednesday, we are doing a special. I don't know if you remember, but last month we did a bit of a membership drive special. This is not technically going to be a membership drive, but it is going to be a follow-up to that. So Vishanti, Chesh, Doc Dino are all going to get a link, and we're going to see if we can't finish up that talk by Gabriella Haynes. And last time it went like 6 hours. I'm expecting it to do something similar. And also the donation page for the PC is going to be up until at least after that. My plan is to close down the GoFundMe either that evening or the next morning or something like that, right? Like, it's not like it has a hard deadline, but after that, I'm not going to guarantee that it's still up. So if donating to that is something you want to do, basically you have between now and the end of that stream on Wednesday. That is going to be starting at 2 p.m. Pacific, which is 5 p.m. Eastern. Oh, and Kip, Paul wants to let you know that he has a jingle for that. I'm not positive what that is, but
No,
I
it's
do.
yeah. Yep.
Yes,
That one.
I do know that one. Also, Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, when you enter an IPA contest, but your rival is an amateur conlanger, oof, yeah, you're about to get wrecked at that point. Amateur conlangers tend to know way more about the IPA than any normal person would ever need to learn. So yeah. Okay, so then on Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be having a premiere of the video Noah's Mountain Lobsters, which is a response to an Institute for Creation Research thing. We're going to be talking about how the flood buried things according to how high elevation they were, which raises the question then, why are there like late Cretaceous and, like Cenozoic lobsters in the fossil record? Were they living on the tops of mountains? I guess so. So we're going to learn about how back in the days of Noah, apparently, lobsters lived on top of mountains, which is the only explanation that seems to be available to us.
Great.
Yeah. And then Saturday, we're going to be back, and we're going to be starting chapter 27. Was Pentecost a reversal of what happened at Babel?
So this feels irrelevant somehow.
Most of the book. Wait, look, it might be that's a chapter that we skip eventually, but we're going to start. Wow. We're going to go into it and see what's going on. And if it seems like something we're going to skip, then we will skip it. But currently, the plan is to read that on Saturday, and that will again be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern.
I will not be here.
Yeah, Vish won't be here.
Oh, that's true.
Maybe I'll bring in an alternate. Maybe.
Oh, that could be fun.
I also just might not. So, Vish, do you have anything that's coming up that you want people to know about?
Yes and no. Chrissy Hansen and I are going to be working on a thing.
Nice.
So that's coming soon-ish. We had to take a break because she injured her voice and had to let her rest. Not exactly the best thing if you're trying to do videos.
Yeah, no, it's not. There are definitely there have been weekends where I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to talk this weekend. I'm just not going to.
Yeah.
And then I just don't talk. I'll type. A lot of typing.
Yep.
No talking. All right, Kip, you got anything coming up that people need to know about?
Nothing this week. I don't think. Yeah, we did Hebrew on Thursday, and I streamed yesterday. I may or may not, but probably will have another installment of my new After Dark show next weekend. But budget scripture Saturdays. the show in which I get drunk with Nitty and we watch a dumb video that Maya Atkinson has picked out for us. So that might but definitely will be happening next week on Saturday night. But that'll be after, I'm back on this channel. I'm gonna try and do a lot of editing, I think, this week.
Okay.
So
well, that's pretty important. So awesome.
it is.
All right. So that basically is it. If you are interested, we are going to be watching 4 episodes of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel. It's going to be episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6, if I remember correctly. And if you are someone who is anxious for us to get on to Godzilla, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we only have 2 more teams after this. The bad news is that's still like, what is it? 1, 2, 5 seasons or something. So like, no, it's still going to be a little while, but it's under a year. We'll be on to Godzilla in under a year, and then Godzilla won't even take a year because the plan is to watch one movie after each stream. And I mean, there's only 50-something movies, so like it'll only take us about 6 months, a little bit more. So yeah, there we go. And then we'll be on to Star Trek, which will take a long time because we're going to be watching virtually all of Star Trek in chronological order. We're not watching Discovery. Don't ask me. It's not happening. I will want to break things.
Well, we're having a heat wave, so I'm going to go turn on the air conditioner.
All right. I'll talk to all of you later. And if you're interested, head over to the Discord and we will be watching some Power Rangers. And if you're not, then I hope you have a wonderful, safe rest of your weekend. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. Bye, everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Van Tovend, Furgevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, Elleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostek von Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, and Volus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.